So I'm in this process of finding my voice. Thank you to those who are mirroring that back. My son is Guillaume. Shush, please. My son's on the sofa. And I wanted to say something about Israel and Palestine and all of this because I've not said anything about it. And what I want to say is regarding my direct experience. So I also don't write about this like this because, well, I might upload this to YouTube and then get the transcription and then ask ChatGPT to structure it or not, remove the timestamps and then put it into some kind of order. But basically, this means that this is my head, and it's definitely me. It's not a ChatGPT that's writing this or LLM. So I grew up in Glasgow, and one part of it, I was in Whitecraigs, which was a very, very Jewish area. And so I went to school with many friends who may not have said they were Jewish, but they were definitely from Jewish families. And at that time in the 80s, anyone who wasn't Christian, any family could say, we don't want our children to be part of the opening school kind of reception, and because it was a very Christian school that I went to. Therefore, you've got the assembly going on, and all the Jewish children are outside waiting, and then they're ushered in once the religious bit is finished. It's just and when I was captain of that school, every single day I was part of that whole circus, and I would read from the Bible. That was my duty. So that was my first interaction with those concepts, and many of my friends in the local area were, I remember them. I didn't think of it. I didn't know what Jewish meant, so I just didn't think of it. They were just guys. And I was at an all-boys school. Fast forward to 2013, when I'm invited by a guy who grew up in Israel, saying, I'd love you to come to Israel and meet the people I know, and for your fire to be there, to speak, to tell your stories. So that was at the storytelling school. So I went to Israel for the first time in 2013. And I went via Latvia. I don't know why, it was cheapest. So I saw my friend in Latvia and then went to Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion Airport. And I still remember the queue for ages, for this, all these, the people, and then seeing all the Israelis arriving and just straight in, and everybody else, this long queue. And it got to my turn. And at that time, 2013, I had a beard that was bigger than this. And later I was told that anyone with a big beard is often suspected to be either pro-Palestine or just somebody. If you've got a long beard, then you may be somebody who wants to end up, go through Israel and go to Palestine. But I just still remember the interview and, giving the papers and why you're here and having to show that. And then this woman asking me, why do you have a beard? And I said, well, I like it, and so does my partner. And she said, where's your partner? I said, well, she's in Spain. And she said, well, why is she not here? I said, well, she's there and I'm here and I'm on this course and she's working. And then it was a welcome to Israel. And a few people on our training course who had Arabic surnames were put into the green room for long interviews about their heritage. Very intense experience. And then and then I was near the Sea of Galilee, a place called Harduf. And I was doing a course for a month. And it was about conflict in my own life and everyone who was on the course, conflict. And the second 2 weeks we worked with Arabic and Jewish children, which eventually turned into, I think, 20 Arabic children and 1 Israeli teenagers, with the intention of this amazing place called Gateway to Humanity, which brought together Arab and Jewish children and teenagers to be with each other and to do theatre together, because once you do that and then they stop understanding one another, they don't want to hate each other in the future. And I still remember being in this place and in the forest and talking to this Arabic man. Guillaume, please. Guillaume. Guillaume.
What?
Yeah, this elder Arabic man. I just been sitting there. There's it was Arabic and Jewish people. I could have talk for hours about this whole space, and I said, this will never ever end. This conflict, and the world doesn't understand unless you are there and live there and feel it, the history. So I remember that conversation, and remember the intention of 2 of the people in this space to create a new country within Israel that was beyond all of this. No labeling. Who knows what's happened with that? But just I just remember this Gateway to Humanity being initiated by, and I don't, if I'm wrong about the story, I'm sorry, but what I remember is that a few people came together, and one of them was a former Israeli military guy, commander of some unit, who was sent into an Arabic area to just to get the people out, and with their tanks, and these young Arab men came out and just were throwing rocks at them. And then this Israeli kind of held one of these Arabic men in his arms and held them, and later this Arabic man said, that's the first time I felt safe in my life, in his arms. So they struck up a friendship. Beautiful story. And then they said, okay, let's create something, let's bring together our children so that they get to know each other and don't hate each other when they're older. It's such a long process that's been going on there. There's stuff that's happening that we don't know, right? So that's the first thing I want to talk about. And being in Jerusalem and seeing the wall and the temples and the mosques and feeling the energy, the intensity, seeing these young men with guns, these Israeli young men, guns, and the Arabic men just smoking their cigarettes with their drinking coffee, watching. Just the intensity of it all. In this place called Jerusalem. I was in Nazareth as well. Sea of Galilee. And usually, a lot of people, I didn't know this, but Glasgow, where I was born, is twin with Bethlehem. Why on earth is Glasgow City Council twin with Bethlehem in Palestine, and Bethlehem's like in the middle over there. It's a strange way they did it. And that reminds me, in 2013, I was in the house, due to the people we were with, where the map of Israel was drawn by the British, the partitioning. So I was there. It's fucking intense. I get really sick. Mosquitoes. And then when we had to do our final performance, from this whole month of work, I just got this plastic chair, sat in the fire, which was, it was burnt out, but it was just this circle with like all the ash in it, and just off I went into this rant, this, spoken word rant. Still remember that Israeli commander's face. And I had a whole experience with a scorpion, which another time. So again, from there, fast forward to, I forget how it happened. I started to make friends with Palestinians on Facebook. I forget how that happened. But then what happened was, that's how it happened. I was on a bus going from Glasgow to London. And a guy got on the bus holding his bag. This was in I can't find it, 2018 maybe, 2016, 17, 18. But he got on the bus and he sat down next to me, clutching his bag, and obviously an Arabic man. And people looking kind of nervous. I said, how are you doing? I said, yeah, what do I do with my bag? I said, well, can you not put it in the hold? And he said, no, they said there's no room. I said, just put it under the chair. And then we got chatting, and then from the whole way from Glasgow to London, all through the night, 8 hours, he educated me about Islam and the 99 names of God, and just incredible man. And I said, what are you doing here? How'd you get here? He says, well, Glasgow, because it's got this agreement and relationship with Bethlehem, we are allowed to come here to study. So he was doing some kind of university program at Glasgow University, and great friendship, great man. And he eventually wore my kilt one day. And then, and then when I was back in Glasgow and he was there, I met some of his friends. And just, I was homeless at the time. Alec Guillaume, can you please put that down? It's just kind of cognitive dissonance talking about it's not his fault. And this is why it's so hard to feel into what's happening now, because I was there. I was in that land. I met those people, and so the main point I want to get to now is, and this is my kind of, to essence this is, I forget his name. I think it's, no, I don't, his name is Mohammed, and I hope he's still alive. And he was in Glasgow with, I think it was Aziz, and I met them regularly in Glasgow. And when I was homeless, they offered me their bed, which even my friends, I couldn't speak to my parents at that time. I mean, they offered me my bed. I remember I said, no, I can't take your bed, I'll sleep on the floor. So I slept on the floor, but and they fed me, and they, and I remember meeting Mohammed in Glasgow Botanic Gardens, 20 something. And, he was smoking cigarettes. I had a cigarette with them, I communally do that. Well, I do that, sorry. And he leaned towards me and said, I have a confession. He said, I've been to your bars and I've drank alcohol, which is completely against everything I stand for. But I wanted to understand. And so he went to the bars in Glasgow and he drank, and he then just said, you know, I didn't, and I just don't understand. I said, there is nothing here that I want. There's nothing in your culture that I want. I would rather be with my family, with my friends, being bombed and threatened than live here in your culture. And that, I just, you know, and I understood. And I think I met him again a few times, and we wept together. I remember crying together and just saying, you know, only when that wall comes down and everyone is free is the world ever going to move on to any kind of genuine civilization. And there's so many intellectuals and other whatever who say all the kind of reasons why it should still be there, but you know, they have no streets. I remember in Glasgow they'd only talk in postcodes because that's what they're used to. They have no street names. They don't trying to, you know, they're disorient themselves as to where they are at any given time. They only have codes and areas. It's just inhumane. And the vast majority of people just don't viscerally understand. And I'm not saying I do. I am not saying I do. But I sat with them and I felt their pain and also felt their joy and their bravery and their desire to, you know, build their way out of it themselves. And now look at it. And I know myself well enough that if I really went into the pain, I couldn't function as a human. I just couldn't function right now at what's happening. And this is the distance, you know, my son over there playing his game, just you know, this whole, when I was teaching in schools years ago, and I saw 10,000 kids in 2 years all over England and Scotland, mostly England. But the challenge to speak to 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17, 18, 12-year-olds about the whole thing was called Inspiring Futures. And I'm talking to them about the future without being able to talk about the now because they just wouldn't understand. I couldn't go into the realities of, so you've got to teach them skills without giving the facts of reality. You've got to say, okay, do this, this, and this, and then everything will be fine. So every time I worked with kids, I tried to be as honest as I could until it felt uncomfortable. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I guess I'm needing to speak to get this out, to find a way of just being genuine and real about things, having read so much garbage on the internet. That'll do for now. Of course, if you're in Israel for a month, you learn a lot. If you meet people from Palestine and spend dozens of hours with them, you feel, you interact, and whether the Israelis, the Palestinians, whatever name you call them, human beings. Human beings, everyone's the same. Same physical needs, same hopes, dreams of peace and freedom and love and care and joy. Thank you if you've watched all of this. Lots of love.